Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi, and this is Mr. Miyagi's Workshop. Well, we're continuing on with the XS650. We've gotten the cylinder pretty much ready to go. I did paint the head yesterday, right here. And basically, I'll just show you what I ended up doing. Let me move this ahead a little bit out of the way. Move this up. Basically what I did for painting this, I just put on some flat washers so that the areas where the bolts and everything go down on, then the sealing points are all covered so they don't get painted. So I'm just going, basically going through and removing these. Now I used some covers on there and I ended up taping off the covers, and I'll clean these up later. But that just kind of makes it quick and easy. Threw some tape around the rocker arm plugs, and I taped off the timing area, little covers there. So it's just pretty much a fairly easy way of doing it. I put on the back breather cap, which I'm going to end up removing because I have to put a gasket in there. But that is a fairly simple way of taping off for these cylinders, for the cylinder heads. We'll go ahead and just pull the rest of these off here. And I just basically taped up areas that I didn't want any paint on. I'm just trying to keep the flat sealing surface without any paint on it so it seals properly. And that's pretty much it. Basically, the head and rocker assembly is ready to install on the engine for right now. I'm going to separate these two because I did use the pins, the locating pins, to hold this together. There's two locating pins up here on the top for the rocker assembly. So I think what we're going to end to do now is that I'm going to kind of clear this out of the way, and we're going to set up the pistons. Now, I've already put the rings on one of the pistons right here. This is the left piston. This is the right piston. We'll go ahead and install the new rings. This is second stage bore on these. So you're going to do the oil ring first, the inner, and that's on the third link down. And you want to make sure that these don't overlap, that these two ends just touch on that oil ring. Now we're going to bring down the lower part of this. And one thing you want to keep in mind too is that you want to keep your gap on your rings where they're open. So what we have here is that the break in it in the ring, in the inside ring, is here. The lower one is here. There. And then I'm going to go 30 degrees past that. For the other. Now we have the compression rings to go on. And if you look on these, they'll indicate which way to go like this one will have numbers right on top. So that is the top one. This is the second compression ring. So here again, you want to find where your gaps are at. And go 30 degrees past that. So you want to be very careful about putting these on. They actually make a tool for putting these on, but I just very carefully spread them and slide them down, because you can break these if you're not careful. So I've got a compression ring here. So what we're going to end up doing, we're going to put the next one here. So this is the top ring, and it'll have numbers right on top, so that goes up. Also, what I've done is I've put in the keeper pin, the keeper spring for our wrist pins. And these are on the inside, and I'll show you why here a little later. So right now I'm going to set up and get everything going, and then I'll be right back to you. Right. A lot of you probably don't have a ring compressor, and you can either rent these or whatever. But one of the little tricks that I use to install, because I'm going to install my pistons in my cylinders first before I put them on the bike. Now you can do them with the pistons on there, but I find it a little bit more of a hassle. So the easiest way that I do it is I'll go ahead and install the pistons with the rings on in the cylinder right now. Makes it much easier. On the top of the piston, there's an arrow that's pointing forward. This is the front part of the cylinder. This is the back part. I've got it upside down now. So one thing I do is I like to lubricate the cylinder. Now a lot of guys use a heavy oil and stuff. I just use WD-40 because it helps break the rings in, I think, a lot quicker. So one of the little tricks is where you have the gap, this gap here of the gap ring of the, like, let's say the top one, on the opposite side, you want to line everything up so that your wrist pins are straight. And what I like to do is I like to set that in there and kind of at a little slight angle to get that ring to slide down. You'll feel it kind of slide in. Then just take a little bit of either a flat screwdriver or such, and then just push that ring into the piston with a little bit of pressure, not a lot. Boom, there's the first ring on. So now we're going to do the second one. We're doing the same process. We're just going to tilt that a little bit so that back edge of that ring is kind of into the cylinder already. And then you're just pushing this, making sure. So you don't want to get this into a bind. There. See how that? And then on the oil ring one, just slightly tap it. Make sure everything is lined up. So what I will do is I will bring it down to that edge area of where the wrist pin is, because I need the clearance. And then we take the wrist pin, pull it out of the package. And let's put some lubricant on this. Let's put some lube. All right. Now, I will insert that in the side, not all the way through, because you want to drop this down over top the rods. And once this is all stuck, we will block this cylinder in place. Also, remember those O-rings I was talking about. Those need to go in place. And we also needed to put a base gasket on. So, plus, we haven't finished putting all the head studs in. So let's move over to that area there and we'll finish up this project. Now I've installed all of these studs. I'm just going to basically show you on one what I did. I ended up putting 2 nuts and tightened them down on the threads. I've also gone through and cleaned all of the threads inside and on the case, or on the stud, excuse me. So basically what we're doing is we're just screwing this down inside. And we're going to run. I put a little bit of blue Loctite on there because I like to make sure it's going to stay in place. Tighten it down and remove the nuts. One of the things I need to do here is I need to put a base gasket on. Right now what I'm going to do is try to feed this base gasket, through there. Make sure you line it up properly. I've got strings on this timing chain. This can be a little bit of a challenge, especially for me, being old and everything. I'm a little confused. Hang on. All right. So that goes like that. The bigger loop of the gasket goes forward. And you want to use these pin locator holes, which are larger, to kind of help you figure out which way everything needs to go. Once again, I always say, take your time. So let's feed the string through the gasket. All right, let's walk this down a little bit. Sometimes these can be a little bit, they tend to hang up a little, but once you get them to slide, they slide fairly easy. Get it down. Now what I've done is I've put a spot up above. I have my little crane thing here, and I made a spot so I could tie off my string. So basically what we need to do is the chain tensioner on the inside, and okay. Now what I've done here, I've used a 4.5 inch block here I've set up with a nice little tightener on it. So if I, you'll need to be able to take this apart. And this just slides down on there. And what this is going to do is this is going to stop the cylinder from coming all the way down. So here's where it gets fun. It's always nice to have a friend to help you out on this part. I don't have anybody here today, so my big thing is I got to get the string through. There we go. Slip this up. Basically what I do is I'll just set that cylinder on top there until I get everything here straight and around, so I don't have to fight it later. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, now that I've got this chain up and out of the way, we're going to try to get everything lined up. That just slides down. You got 3 things going on here. You got a guide going on. You have 2 rods that we have to line up, slide up inside there. There we go. Piston is just here low. So you got to play with them a little bit to get that pin, that wrist pin, to slide into the holes. There. Just slides right in. One's locked. We'll go to the other side now. And we will work that in. There we go. And that just pushes in. Now we have to put the keepers in. It's kind of nice to be able to kind of have this unit held up. That's why I made this little block system. Works fairly well. Putting the keepers in, I usually get a pair of needle nose or such. And just twist. And they should just pop. I'm saying that they should just pop in, but not all the time. There they go. Just kind of twist it in there. Good to go. With the wrist pins locked in place and making sure that the guide, chain guide, is in where it should be. You can remove your support. And that's basically all I built, just so it comes apart. This, just work it down. Don't try to screw up your gasket. Just play with it. Everything is clear there. Okay, cylinder down. And at this stage, you kind of want to remember to put your other pin guides in place. And we'll move on to the head, which can be a bit on the tricky side. I'm going to weight this down so that it holds tension on that chain. So here again, we got to figure out which way this stuff goes. Okay, compression ring up. This is up. Back this way. So I'm going to take that chain. After I wrap this all up here. Still keeping tension against that. Place the timing chain through the center of the gasket. Okay, I'm going to tie this up out of the way right at the moment. If you got a spot overhead, this is certainly a lot easier than trying to hang on to it and do everything at the same time. Okay, just walk that down on there. Make sure everything is not in a bind. There we go, we're down. So I'm going to go back to doing what I was going to do in the beginning. I'm going to weight this a little bit. Check the surface. Front goes this way. Now here again, I usually just set this on here, keeping tension on that timing chain. I'll reach down with a little tool that I've made from some welding rod. Set that there. Loop my string on it and pull that through. Still keeping tension on everything. Let's go up and tie this off. There we go. We down? Nope, not all the way. Tap these down onto those guide pins. Excellent. Cam in place. Now what I'm going to do now, since we have the old stator on, so what I've done here is I've lined up the mark on the rotor and the mark on the stator for top dead center. Now another thing you can do is you can make up a little tool that will bring those pistons up to top dead center. That's where you want everything. Now the cam here has an indicating mark right here, which needs to be level with these points. If you sight down along this edge here, you should be able to line up that point there. And that's how you set your timing on the cam. Now you'll have some cams that'll have a double line. This one just has the one. So I'm going to move this back a little bit so I can get in there and set this proper. And that should do it right there. So at this time, I usually just take a clamp to hold this all in place, hopefully, without it falling off. And I'll get my pin. Now I've removed my string and everything, and what I've tried to do is I've tried to put that master link at the very top of the cam. You can play with the chain a little bit. You can go up and down on it a little bit. We get the master link in. And there's the outside of the master link. Now they make a tool for smashing these to setting these together. And here again, here's probably something that you guys don't have in your arsenal of tools. But there's one thing you can do. You find an old C-clamp. Now what I've done here is I've taken off the tip and rounded out the corners. All right, so all I did there is I just made up my own little tool for indenting those master link units. So I want to make sure that this is all going together like we want. So all we're basically doing is we're screwing that in, and it's just spreading out the tip of that link so that it becomes a solid link. Because you definitely don't want this coming loose. Can be a bit of a bother. And we'll move on to the other one. All right. Another thing that once you do have them at this stage, if you're not real sure about that link is totally set, is I usually take a pair of vice grips. I've got these nice narrow ones. I'll pull it in there a little bit. And then I have a little piece of metal put in behind. There. Or you can buy the regular tool. Some auto parts stores do sell the timing chain tool, or you can just rent one. But you can make one out of a, like I just showed you there. So hope that helps. Yeah, well, okay, I forgot a part. But I thought at this way, I'd also show you that you don't have to break the timing chain on these. You can just pull the cam when you're disassembling. So what I forgot to install was the forward piece, the forward guide for the timing chain. So hopefully I've got enough room to slip this down. Yeah, looks like that's what happens when I wasn't paying attention all the stuff. So what we'll do is we'll just lower that down in there. Sometimes you forget stuff, and it's easy enough for me to come back and do this. You have to remove the cam bearings, which can be a bit of a pain. Some slide off, some are a little bit more snugger than others. Like these were fairly snug. Now I got my cam chain follower in place. Basically, it's the same process again. We're just trying to get this chain back here. And it's a bit of a hassle, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in from the other side. I get a little bit more room. And you can drop that all back down in there. Get my alignment for the cam. There it is. Chain. It's a little bit of a hassle. You got to kind of play with it, but you also want to kind of keep everything aligned again. I'm going to see if I can't bring that link back up to where I wanted it. So there, we got the timing chain back on. We're one length off. I can tell that right now just by looking at it. You want to double check your mark down here on the deal. So all you got to do is you just got to walk that chain around. Let's walk this back up here. You've got enough slack in there with the bearings out that you can play with this a little bit. And there we go. So now it's just slipping the bearings back on, holding tension against everything. Go on there. There's one. Go back, check again. Oh, I've slipped just a little bit. All right. Back in business. So you can do it without breaking the timing chain. It's a bit more hassle. Sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to install stuff. You have to work the cam in there, and it's best to work it in from the left side to the right side when you're doing the cam stuff. And then it's just sliding the bearings back on place. Glad I caught that before I buttoned everything up. That's the problem with doing these filmings, is that sometimes I don't pay as much attention that I should. And I like to set those bearings kind of in the center of all these little notches right there. This cam pretty much free floats in there a little bit because, yeah, there we go. So now everything's locked in there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to install the top cap, the rocker box here. So I'm going to get that prepped up, and then I'll get right back at it. Okay, what I've done here, I've put sealant on the areas that are needed. So we're going to apply this. Slide it on. Here again, you want to make sure your dowel pins are in place. and everything should slide down on there. So now what we're going to end up having to do is I'm going to have to get the bolts and everything for this. So I'll be right back. Okay, I've got the bolts and everything on here. I did, let me put this up. I did put on new copper washers on top here, just to make a good seal. They come originally with this rubber washer. I find that the coppers work just fine. Right now I'm just snugging everything down so that it's in place. Okay, we gotta go to these inside boys. So you gotta remember there's actually a set of bolts that you have to put in down by the spark plug holes. And I'm still tightening up these in a sequence. And I'll show you that here in a second. I'm going to do this in a series. These are 25 pound. These are, what are they? 14, and the one in the back here is a 7. So we'll do it in a sequence. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to tighten up the big ones, and I'm going to do this in 3 stages. So the big guys, if we're gonna go to 14, we're gonna start them off probably right around, I'm gonna start them off at 10. 10. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We're down to about 7 pounds. So we're gonna go, what is this? 9 is over here. 9. 10. And this we're just gonna torque to 7 pounds. 7 pounds. And then we're going to go to 12, 13, 14. Okay. So now we're just going to let everything sit for a while, and I'll be back with you. Okay, you're going to start off with next torque. For just the big head bolts, I'm going to go to, what I got to set at here, 20. Okay, we're going to back down. Since the other ones are going to be set at 14 pounds, we did it at 7, so set the 12 meters at, what do I got at? 10. Lower one, let's set it back at 7. Back on the 12s. Put it back on 10, so this would be, the smaller one was 11, so this is 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now we're just going to let it sit, and we'll come back and do the final torque. All right, we're going to do the final torque on this. So the main head bolt ones are 25 pounds. So we're starting off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to drop this down to, if I can get it to loosen up here, 15 pounds for 15 pounds. Now that is for the smaller ones. This is for the 12 millimeter head bolts. So this is 9. Okay. And then we're going to drop, double check with 7 pounds on the back one, the 10 millimeter bolt. Okay. We're going to go back up to the 15 pounds and finish off these upper ones. So here's 12, 13, 14, and 15. One of the other simple little things, you guys are wondering, how do I find top dead center if I don't have stator on there with the pre-marks on it? And if you're putting on one of the newer style PMA stators, won't have it marked. Now some of the guys, will have some sort of mark that you can do it. But what you can do to find top dead centers, you can make up a little tool that'll hit the top of the piston, and you can look at it and bring it up, bring it around, make sure that you're at top dead. And another thing too is to look at your lineups on the cam. On this side where the advance wood, the mechanical advance was, there's a little pin that goes in there. But if you look at that, that should fall in line with where the rocker box comes in. So right there, you see that, should line up with this too. So that would also indicate your top dead center if you've got the cam set right. On this side, you really don't have it, and if you have just the standard timing mark, then it's great because you can line everything else up because this is all keyed and everything has been preset from the factory. The piston's at top dead, so basically you're just using this as a stop. So the piston will come up and hit that and stop, and you have to play with it a little bit to make sure that you're on top dead, adjusting out. But that is another way to find pure top dead center. I'm going to hook up a few more items. I'm going to install the overhead oiler, which will go in here. And we need to install the base. I've already got a new copper on the bottom of this. Installing the fixture for the upper oiler. That goes right on there. And then the upper oiler comes down and just screws on. But one thing we want to make sure that we have is new coppers, top and bottom on this. So we have these coppers that you want to make sure that you get on here. And before you even tighten this thing down, I usually like to slip these on, put my coppers in place up here, the units in, kind of line all this up. It's amazing how many parts were missing off of this. I didn't have these little bolts with the holes and everything for the oilers. They were missing. Matter of fact, several of the bolts for bolting the head down were missing. So luckily I got a bucket full of miscellaneous nuts and bolts. So we'll lock these down, and I just run these down to snug. And the lower one, we'll snug this down tight. All right, after these motors are ran, I'll do a kind of walk through and make sure that everything is tight. Now, I put in a new seal, another O-ring, and another gasket. And there are 3 flathead screws that go in there, along with, you want to make sure you put these little stars on. This stuff just screws in there. Pretty straightforward. Snug those down. All right. And now we're going to grab my favorite tool, the impact driver. I've already installed this one on this side, so I'm going to go ahead. We'll do the same over here. All right. Those are in place. So now the big decision is, what I got to do is I got to make up my mind whether I'm going to run the stock ignition system or put in the Pamco with the mechanical advance. I'm kind of leaning that way since I have one. Plus it'll show you guys how to set stuff up. We could even go to the point of putting points in. I'm trying to make up my mind on that one right now. I still have the side covers to clean and get ready for both sides. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to set this up. We'll do an episode on putting the side covers on. I know I've done it before, but we'll just go over again. Side covers, clutch side, and going through the pump. Oil pump again, just for shits and giggles. Thanks for watching, and if you have any comments or questions, you know where to put them, down in the comment section down there. And this is Mr. Miyagi signing off again, and I really thank you for watching if you've made it this far. So this is the end of this episode, but we've got more to come. But if you really like it, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you on the road. Take care.